All right, we're back, everyone. We're back for our Genesis part of the Torah portion today. We left off at chapter 3 with my mom. I'm going to be reading chapter 4 and chapter 5 and chapter 6 for us to finish us off, and then we'll have someone else read once we do the Isaiah portion. Okay, so here we go. Cain and Abel, and I did want to mention Brother Jeff made a very good connection that he made. He brought up to us off the record that basically Eve was the responsible, basically spiritually speaking, for Adam dying. She gave Adam the fruit, even though he was with her and he could have said no. He gave in, and so she caused her husband to die, and in return, one of her sons gets killed. So it's kind of, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth type of thing spiritually. So very interesting. Cain and Abel. And Adam knew. Oh, I also want to mention, I forgot to mention in the last chapter's reading, Eve is actually a mistranslation. The Hebrew word is supposed to be Hawa or Kua. And actually in the Greek, in my Septuagint, they have a little footnote about it. It says the Greek is Zoe or Zo, and it actually means life, mother of living. So the Septuagint just calls her life. Okay. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that. All right, so here we go. Chapter 4 of Genesis. And Adam knew Eve, and knew Hawa, his wife, and she conceived and brought forth Cain, and said, I have acquired a man through Elohim, and she proceeded to bring forth his brother Abel. Okay, and Abel became a herdsman of the sheep, so he's shepherd. And Cain was working with the earth, and now this happened after a number of days. Cain brought some fruit of the earth as an offering for Yahuwah. And Abel himself also brought some of the firstborn of his sheep and some of their hard fat parts. So, wow, that's interesting. That goes back to the Levitical priesthood, actually, giving the fat. That's interesting. Elohim looked upon Abel and upon his gifts, but he did not pay attention to Cain and upon his offerings. And he grieved Cain very much, and he fell in face. Yahuwah Elohim said to Cain, why have you become deeply grieved, and why has your face fallen? Have you not sinned? If you offer rightly, but do not divide rightly. Okay, so calm down. His recourse will be to you, and you will rule him. And Cain said to Abel his brother, let's walk through the field. And this happened while they were in the field. Cain rose against Abel his brother, and he killed him. Then Elohim said to Cain, where is Abel your brother? But he said, I don't know. I'm not my brother's guardian, am I? Elohim said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the earth. Now accursed are you upon the earth, which opened its mouth wide to receive the blood of your brother from your hand. Because you will work the earth, it will not proceed to give its strength to you. So basically, he's giving him like a similar curse to what he gave to Adam. Thorns and thistles, the earth would not yield to him. You will moan and tremble upon the earth. Cain said to Yahuwah, my guilt is too great for me to be given. If you throw me out today from the face of the earth, I will be hidden from your face. And then I will be moaning and trembling upon the earth, and anyone who finds me will kill me. Yahuwah Elohim said to him, it will not be like that. Anyone who kills Cain will release 7 reprisals. Yahuwah Elohim has placed a sign for Cain so that none who find him would kill him. Cain went out from the face of Elohim and lived in the land of Nod, opposite Eden. Cain knew his wife, and when she conceived and she brought forth Enoch, he was building a city and named the city after the name of his son Enoch. And just to bring this up, because I think this is important to mention, I know there's some people that are against this concept, but physically speaking, he had to marry a sister of his. That's just fact. There was no other humans alive at the point.
Yeah.
If we let the scripture just speak for itself, he found a wife that would have been just outside of Eden. Okay, Adam and Eve, Adam and Kua obviously had other children, had daughters. It makes the most sense rather than some idea that there was human beings before Adam and Kua, which there's no biblical precedence for that. Yep, go ahead, Gibsons.
And I found out through some extra biblicals, and I think it makes the most sense and is in line that the land of Nod is what they called it when they got there. It wasn't already called the land of Nod, and they showed up. I had that question for many years, and then I ran into it in a book somewhere along the way, one of the extra biblicals. So that's just what Adam and Eve happened to name it when they got there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, anyone that wants to look into it, I would say be very cautious with these extra biblical books, but as a historical added witness to this concept that he had to marry his own sister. You can find that in Jubilees, Jasher. I mean, there's tons of extra biblical books that show he had to marry his sister. So I think the book of Adam and Eve even mentions it, and how Satan was trying to fill Cain with some weird lies. And, so there are some interesting extra biblical literature, which I wouldn't say are considered inspired in my opinion, but you can use it for extra witnesses that's what had to happen with him marrying his own sister. So anyway, Cain knew his wife, and once she conceived and she brought forth Enoch, he was building a city and named the city after the name of his son Enoch. So let me explain this, because I know some people are gonna be like, oh, Enoch. No, this is not the same Enoch. Okay, this is Enoch of Cain's line. This is not Enoch of Seth's line. So there's two Enochs. Just don't get confused there. There's actually two different Enochs. And this is really legend, but according to the Freemasons, Enoch of Cain's line might have been the creator of their religion, or Nimrod. Usually they say the Enoch of Cain's line or Nimrod created the Freemason religion according to them and their lore. But anyway, we don't know much about Cain's Enoch. That's more assumption, assertion, conjecture, you could say. But we really don't know much about Cain's son Enoch, other than there was a town built for him by Cain, his dad. That's all we really know. And a city was named after him. That's all we really know here. So Cain knew his wife. Once she conceived, brought forth Enoch. He was building a city and named the city after the name of his son Enoch. Irad was born to Enoch, and Irad fathered Mahuyael, and Mahuyael two wives for himself. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the second was Zillah. Ada brought forth Yabal. This man was the father of cattle raisers who live in the tents. The name of his brother was Yubal. This man was the one who invented the harp and lyre. That's interesting. Zillah brought forth even Tubal-Cain. He was a hammer using coppersmith of copper and of iron. The sister Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. Wives of Lamech, give ear to my words, because I killed a man for a wound to me, and a young man for a bruise to me, because sevenfold revenge has been given to Cain, but Lamech 70 times 7. And so Lamech does something wrong. He basically says, if anyone kills me, 70 times 7 put a mark upon me. So meaning as bad as someone who kills Cain, let there be a mark upon. So, Lamech is trying to put upon himself what Yahuwah put on Cain. So, and as I say again, I'm not saying that you should take Jasher or any other book legitimate, but it does kind of expound upon what happened with Lamech. If you feel like you have discernment enough, you could look into that. But we don't have time to go into that. It kind of expounds upon what happened with Lamech and who he killed. Basically asserts that Lamech somehow killed Cain, so, and all that. So anyway, so, and like I said, I'm not saying Jasher's inspired. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying it's inspired. I'm just saying that that's an extra biblical book that kind of expounds on what happens, what happened here. So anyway, verse 25, Adam knew Kua, his wife, and once she conceived, she brought forth a son and called his name Seth, saying, because Elohim raised up another offspring for me in place of Abel, whom Cain killed, Seth had a son, and he called his name Enosh. So now we're going to Seth's righteous line, Enosh. This one trusted to invoke the name of Yahuwah Elohim. And this is very important because there's doctrines going around that, you know, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob never called upon Yahuwah's name. They didn't know his name. They only knew him as El Shaddai. Well, right here we have Seth before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob calling Yahuwah. Okay. So anyway, I've done a video about that, how that's a misinterpretation of Exodus chapter 6, verse 3. And I've done a video about it. If you want to look it up, it's on the channel. It's on the YouTube channels. I think it's named did Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob not know Yahuwah's name? So anyone that's interested in that, you could look at that on our channel, on our YouTube channel. Okay. So we're going to go to chapter 5. And it says, this is the book of the generation of humans on the day when Elohim made Adam. He made him according to the image of Elohim. He made them male and female. He baruched them and he named their name Adam, meaning mankind. So sometimes when you see Adam in English or Dam in the Hebrew, it just means mankind. Okay. On the day when he made them. Okay. Adam lived 230 years and fathered a child according to his appearance and according to his image, and he named his name Seth. The days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 700 years, and he fathered sons and daughters. And all the days of Adam that he had lived were 930 years, and he died. And just before I continue on, you're going to see differences in ages, Mom, just to let you know ahead of time.
I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Just to let you know the genealogies between the Septuagint.
Because you said,
No,
230 years, and mine said 130 years.
Yep.
And then later on, the 800 became something else.
No, mine has 930. You probably have 830. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
In the end, mine says Adam lived 930
Yeah.
years, but it's the compilation that is different.
Yeah, and that you'll see that as a common thread with the Masoretic versus the Septuagint. Yeah. Seth lived 205 years, and he fathered Enosh, and after he fathered Enosh, Seth lived 707 years, and fathered sons and daughters, and all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enosh lived 190 years, and fathered Canaan, and after he fathered Canaan, Enosh lived 715 years. Okay. And he fathered the sons and daughters, and all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. And Canaan lived 170 years, and he fathered Mahalalel. And after he fathered Mahalalel, Canaan lived 740 years, and he fathered sons and daughters. And all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalalel lived 165 years, and he fathered Jared. And after he fathered Jared, Mahalalel lived 730 years, and he fathered sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. And Jared lived 160 years, and he fathered Enoch. And after he fathered Enoch, Jared lived 800 years, and he fathered sons and daughters. And all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. And Enoch lived 165 years, and he fathered Methuselah. Enoch was very pleasing to Elohim for 200 years after he fathered Methuselah. And he fathered sons and daughters, and all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch was very pleasing to Elohim, and was not found because Elohim transposed him. And another interesting thing here, just to note, is the Jerusalem Targum in that very verse says the word of Yahuwah transported Enoch or took Enoch. So just interesting there. Okay, so lets us know who exactly took Enoch up to heaven to see things. Okay, let's see here. And Methuselah lived 187 years, and he fathered Lamech. And after he fathered Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years, and he fathered sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah which he lived were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 185 years, and he fathered a son, and he gave him the name Noah, saying, this one will relieve us or give us rest from our works and from the pains of our hands and from the earth which Yahuwah Elohim cursed. And after he fathered Noah, Lamech lived 165 years, and he fathered sons and daughters, and all the days of Lamech were 753 years, and he died. All right, time to get to the really, really, really important chapter here. Okay, you're going to see a huge difference because I'm going to give you fair warning. The majority of the time that it says B'nai Elohim in the Hebrew, in the Masoretic text, it will say Agelo Theos almost every time. So just to give you fair warning there, Mom, there's going to be some differences here. And Noah lived 500 years, and Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it happened when humans began to be numerous upon the earth. So what we got to look at here is the context. When humans began to become numerous before on the face of the earth, Mom, was that not until Noah, or was that from Adam to Noah?
I think that was not until Noah.
Well, think about it. They're procreating after they leave the garden. So you're saying they're not going to become numerous until Noah's time? Yeah. I'm just saying we got to keep in context it's in when they began to become numerous. So it's like the beginning of them becoming numerous. So I would think they're becoming numerous before, because Noah's not born, Mom, until like a couple generations after Adam.
Right.
So I'm just saying, if we're going to be honest here, I think. No,
you're probably. I know
you're
right. Yeah.
So it began to be when humans began to become numerous upon the earth, and they had daughters. The angels of Elohim, having seen the daughters of humans, that they were beautiful, took for themselves women from all whom they picked out. So the reason it says that is in the Greek it has Agelo Theos, not B'nai Elohim, or the sons of Elohim. So Yahuwah Elohim said, my breath will certainly not reside in these humans for very long, because they are flesh, but their days will be 120 years. Now giants were upon the earth in those days, and after that, whenever the angels of Elohim entered into the daughters of human, they fathered children for themselves, those who were the giants who were from long ago, people of renown. Now Yahuwah Elohim saw that the wicked actions of humans multiplied upon the earth, and everyone was focused in his heart on evil things all their days. And Elohim reflected that he made mankind upon the earth and considered. And Elohim said, I will discord humanity whom I made from the face of the earth, from human to animal, and from creeping things to winged birds of the heavens, because I am angry, okay, that I made them. But Noah found favor before Yahuwah Elohim. So the reason I brought that up before, why I asked my mom that question, is because the biggest contention, even with people that accept the correct angel view of Genesis 6, which is obviously correct, and we can make a whole nother video about how the Sethite theory is completely unbiblical, is the fact that, Mom, there's people that believe that the 2 incursions happened only in the days of Noah. The reason I asked you that, when humans become numerous, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, humans probably started becoming numerous around the days of probably Seth. You could even say that they started to become very large in quantity around the generations from Seth all the way to Lamech. So to say that it's only Noah, I think we're being dishonest, because that clearly could be giving us the context that it's before Noah. And a second witness, even though not everyone here believes in Enoch, I believe Enoch's inspired. Enoch tells us when exactly in those days were, and it was in the days of Jared. So I personally believe, and I'm not pushing this as doctrine, I'm just saying I believe that it was in the days of Jared that these two incursions happened. It was not in the days of Noah. The days of Noah would have been after. And at that point in the days of Noah, he was already preaching repentance and getting the ark ready for between the time that he had to build the ark and when the flood came. He really only had time to preach repentance, and pretty much so that would make me think that what the angels did had to be in the days of Jared, mainly because of what Enoch says, that it happened literally in the days of Jared. So that was Genesis 6, 1-8. Brother Jeff and Sister Zakai, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
So when you look at the lineage here, only Seth is mentioned in the lineage of Adam, right? They don't mention Cain was the firstborn, but he's not even brought up, right? And Abel wasn't old enough to have children. He's not brought up, you know. I wonder if this is the very beginning peak at the book of that we would call the Register of Israel. Like what we're seeing being if you look at all these names, if you go through the names, can you pick any out that didn't have a relationship with Yah? You know, if you go through that lineage, there's a lot of big names in there, and I wonder if Seth is only mentioned in there because they could have mentioned Cain as the firstborn, because Cain went on to have a life after that and wasn't killed. So why didn't they mention him in the lineage? You know, I just wonder if this is believing already, you know, not ungrafted Yah's family. You know what I mean? Like, and they're naming them by name the same way when they go through the Register of Israel, you know, a couple times. I've constantly and always wondered if that is the Lamb's Book of Life, or if that is the Register of Israel is related to that.
Wouldn't he be the first one that's not under a curse?
You know, Seth had a relationship with Yah. He was obedient. He was a good kid.
Wouldn't he be the first one that wasn't put under a curse?
Well, Abel was killed. He wasn't put under a curse.
So he wasn't put under a curse. He was murdered.
So
Yeah, I would say, yep. Go ahead, Jeff.
That's all. I just wanted to bring that up. I thought it was interesting that I don't think everybody's listed in this as far as lineage, because they only mention.
Yeah, and that's a great point to be brought up. Some serpent seed doctrine people will try to go a little too crazy with that point, and they'll try to, you know, try to make connections where there's no connections to be made. They'll try to say, you know, all of Cain's line is children of the devil and all that crazy stuff. I think your reasoning, Jeff, makes a lot more sense. Your explanation on why there's no genealogy for Cain's line makes a lot more sense than that. And I would agree. Probably has something to do with almost like a registering of believing, you know, children of Adam and Eve versus those that would have kind of been cut off because of their wickedness, you know. And I, like I said before, I've yet to see any biblical evidence that Cain would have repented and, you know, would have came back to Yahuwah. So most likely his descendants became like heathens and Gentiles. They, like, spiritually speaking, maybe not physically, but either way, we are at pre-Israel time period right now. So we got to keep in mind too, the grafting in is not really necessary yet because we're not at the Tower of Babel. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that we're not, I look at it, and this is just my opinion, I look at it as there was the pre-Israelite time period, every human being pretty much automatically was Yahuwah's children, as long as, you know, they, from the garden anyway, the way it started out was everyone was Yahuwah's children. There was no differentiating, there was no separating of his set apart people versus the rest of the world. That hadn't happened yet. From what I've studied, that doesn't really happen until the Tower of Babel, and then you get the majority of humankind rejecting the Father. And then it even says, and I'll show you guys, I'm not making this up, I'll go to the Septuagint of Deuteronomy 32 here and show you I'm not just asserting something here. Okay, this is Deuteronomy 32, verse 8. And I'll use my sword here. Okay. All right, so, and this is, at this point, I think is when Yahuwah's plan of Yasharel, he's already has in mind to pick one nation out of all the nations. But before that point, I don't see any evidence that he already had Yasharel being implemented in the garden or anything. Says Deuteronomy 32, verse 8, when the Most High divided the nations, Tower of Babel, when he separated the sons of Adam, so every human is a son of Adam, he set the boundaries of the nations according to the number of the angels of Elohim. And his people, Jacob, became the portion of Yahuwah. Yasharal was the line of his inheritance. So we see that after the Tower of Babel, Yahuwah already has this plan to have one people that he's giving his inheritance to. Only one people. So that's kind of like would be my explanation why we're not really seeing much of a separation yet. Maybe a little bit of a separation, like Brother Jeff said, with Cain's line, but you'll see later on that still there for the majority of mankind is still considered, Yahuwah's children spiritually. It's not like there's really not a separation in the book of Genesis yet, because they start over after. We haven't read it yet, but once you see after the flood, Yahuwah starts over before the Tower of Babel, where everyone, all the descendants of Noah would be considered his people until the Tower of Babel. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. So technically, we're not seeing a grafting in yet. You'll start seeing it soon, like especially with Ephraim's prophecy and all that. But right now we're kind of like, I kind of see Yahuwah working in a different way before the Tower of Babel, where he was working straight through all descendants of Adam and Eve that were righteous. It was not like it was really not a legit grafting in concept where you have to take ethnic heathen and graft them in, where everyone's a descendant of Adam and Kua at this point. And so Cain's line possibly, like I agree with Jeff, though, in the same light that you have Cain's line not being mentioned, so it seems like Cain is being cut off because his line is just completely wicked. So I see that too. So I do agree with Jeff on the thing about Cain. But yep, go ahead, Gibson's.
Like I got one more thing that might even add to that is we can see later in the genealogy of Yahusha in the Gospels, when he's introduced to who he is, you'll see that Ruth is in the family register of Israel and in the genealogy of Yahusha. You're right. She's counted because she was foreign born, but she was married into Israel, therefore being quote unquote not grafted in, but grafted in. I don't know if that's the right terminology for what happened to her, but she was brought into Israel the same way anybody could always be brought into Israel. And so I think it's interesting that she's mentioned in the genealogy, even though she wasn't a quote unquote native born blood relative, but she is still included the same exact way. And so the way that Cain was pulled out, I see maybe that Ruth was put in, in that sort of way and mentioned in the genealogy like we see here.
Yeah, hallelujah. Yeah, she's one of the proofs that shows the grafted in concept. And I know some people don't want to accept she's like Moabite born. They'll try to say, well, they were just called Moabites that lived in Moab. They'll try to work their way around it, certain people. But yeah, she was a Moabite. She was grafted in. She was literally an ethnic Moabite. Also, most people don't realize this. Job was an Edomite. So most people don't even realize that Job was technically not really Shemite. He was an Edomite. He was a descendant of Esau, according to the Septuagint of the last chapter of Job. So if that's the case and he's an ethnic Edomite, that's an ethnic Edomite being grafted in as a Hebrew. Yahuwah treated him as a Hebrew. He held him to the same standard. Any Christians listening here, okay, he held him to the same standard. Yahuwah was testing him in the same way he would test an ethnic Israelite, with what he allowed Satan to do to him. So anyway, I thought that was really important that Brother Jeff brought up, and I just wanted to piggyback off of that. Job's another grafting in concept before the New Testament. Okay, so all right, so let's see where we're going with here. We just finished Genesis. All right, we're going to stop the recording again and start a new one, just so I keep these to not too long of a recording so people can actually be able to follow along. And okay, so here we go. We'll stop the recording. We'll start a new one for the book of Isaiah, chapter 42. Stay tuned, everyone.